Thanks for tuning in today. Fun fact, if you listen to these as they come out, my book just released on Amazon Kindle. It's available now for free. Visit behindthepink.com/Kindle to get your copy today. Again, that's behindthepink.com/Kindle. On today's episode, I was able to chat with my friend and previous Dragon Boat teammate, Lynn Wegryznek. She shared how her experience with breast cancer screenings, diagnosis, and treatments were different 22 years ago compared to today. Lynn talked about learning to let go of her independence to allow people to help her. Her story is sure to provide hope and inspiration. Let's take a listen. Welcome to Behind the Pink Ribbon, where we share stories, information, and other content related to breast cancer. My name is Melissa Adams. I am a 12-year genetic breast cancer survivor. I've learned so much through my own journey with breast cancer. I have met some amazing people along the way, many that have become lifelong friends. I have experienced the emotional roller coaster of a breast cancer diagnosis, heartache, anger, frustration, loneliness, and even gratitude. Through this podcast, we will speak to breast cancer survivors, supporters, and healthcare professionals to gain insight and understanding behind the pink ribbon. Hi, Lynn. Welcome to the show.
Hi.
I'm, first of all, grateful that you're here. I appreciate you coming on and being a part of this. So I just want to share with the listeners that we know each other from Pink Steel, Dragon Boat team. We were teammates. And
a long time ago.
yeah. It's been 4 years since I've been in Pittsburgh. But I started with the team in 2008, so long time together on the boat.
That's when you were motorcycling, right?
Or 2009. 2008 or 9. I don't know. Who knows? Who knows what I was doing then? So we're going to chat about your breast cancer story. The first place that I'd like to start is how many years of a survivor are you?
22 years.
22 years. Wow. Yeah. How old were you when you were diagnosed?
I was 44 years old.
44. So you were pretty young.
And the funny part was I was supposed to go away for the weekend to Las Vegas. And the trip got canceled. So I thought, this is a good enough time to get my mammogram done. Yeah. So I went and got my mammogram done.
They got you in that fast?
Yeah. This is 22 years ago.
Oh, okay.
And it wasn't a diagnostic. So,
okay.
And they called me back on Wednesday and said, we see something. We need you to come back. So Friday, I went back in for an additional mammogram and a biopsy. And at the time, I had to get permission for everything from my insurance company. And the office actually had a phone set up where their patients could call their primary physician for their authorization. And the following Wednesday, after that, I got a call that, yes, it was stage 1 breast cancer.
So they called you on the phone. They didn't have you come into the office.
Absolutely not.
So this isn't something new. So I had the same experience, and it was, for me, pretty traumatizing. So how did you respond to getting a phone call? Did you anticipate a phone call? Did you hope to go into the office?
Actually was sitting with one of my patients at her home in North Versailles, and not far from here. And my phone rang, and it was my doctor. And my patient held my hand while I listened to the doctor.
Oh my gosh.
And I knew when they showed me, because it wasn't a lump, it was almost, it looked almost like an octopus, or it had a central body and there were like arms coming out of it. So yeah, I knew.
Right.
And I just plowed forward. There wasn't, I didn't even have a second thought. It was like, we're getting this done and I'm moving on.
Right. So, I mean, it sounds like hopefully you had a good enough relationship with this client that you were working with.
Yes.
Because I could imagine that, if maybe this were a new patient or a new client, that would probably be, very awkward and difficult. So, I'm glad that you were with somebody that obviously, you had a relationship with and was kind to do that, to be there for you. So, yeah, it's It always kind of breaks my heart when I hear about people getting phone calls with that kind of news. I think it's one way or the other. I don't know. Some people like it, some people don't like it. So,
Yeah.
so is there do you have a family history? I mean, you didn't have a lump. You just kind of went in for
Hmm.
your regular
I
exam, kind of led to all
Right.
this stuff. So
I
is there a
never would
family
have. I
history?
never would have. No. Um, I never would have felt it. So, but my great aunt, okay, my mother's aunt, found a lump in the early 1940s. She was very active. She was running. She went to the doctor. Did she have breast cancer? We have no idea. They removed her breasts and 2 months later removed her uterus. And she lived in her 90s. So,
Oh,
did she have breast cancer? I have no idea.
okay. But there's potentially,
There's a
maybe there was, right.
slight possibility.
Okay.
You know,
So you said you wouldn't be able to feel your lump.
right.
And is that because why is that?
Because it
Because
was
the size.
flat.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, it actually had no it had no substance, I guess. It wasn't round and hard or long or, however some of the shapes of some of the lumps can be.
Right. Okay. So then was it kind of scattered throughout the entire breast? Was it kind of isolated to
It
a
was
particular area?
isolated though. After my initial surgery, I had to go back for clear margins a week later.
Okay. So did they, at that point in time, I mean, this is 22 years ago, so I hear differing things from different people. So did they look at you to have testing done for genetic mutation at any point in time?
Absolute, not once.
Okay. Okay. Yeah,
I
some
don't even
people
think that wasn't even. I mean, it never even came up.
not okay. Yeah, and for some people what I hear is like they have a really long history of cancer in their family and they can't get approved from their
Right.
insurance
Yeah.
companies. And then I have other people who are like, oh, I had this, you know, whatever aunt or uncle or grandma or whatever, and it might be one incident and they're being referred for genetic testing. So it's very confusing to me in terms of why some people get approved and some people don't. Um, so I was just kind of curious about that. So you go in, you do all of these tests. They tell you that it's cancer.
Malignant. Yeah.
Yeah. And so what happened next? What was your course of treatment? I know you said you kind of
Well,
plowed through, but
I
what did they
I
do?
had I had my lumpectomy on May 12th, which is within 5 weeks of my diagnosis. Only because my doctor went away on vacation for a week, or I would have been in a week sooner. Um, and
Well, they have to
I didn't care.
vacation too.
Well, my mother was worried. Why does she have to go away? Never mind. But my mother was a nurse, so and it. I went in and I had my lumpectomy, and then 2 weeks later had the edges done, and then I met with the oncologist. And at first he wasn't going to do chemo, and I went, no, I don't think so. I think you need to read those reports a little bit better. And when he did, it was a stage 1, and I did 6 months of chemo, which they don't even use anymore. It's called CMF, cytoxin, methotrexate, and 5-FU. And it was done by injection, butterfly injection, on a Friday, the methotrexate and the 5-FU. And then I started 4 times a day the cytoxin pills. The next Friday went back for another injection and did another week of the cytoxin pills. We did that for 6 cycles.
Okay. And so your doctor was really kind of like, no, you don't need chemo. We're not going to go that route. But
well, my surgeon told me I would. Let's put
okay.
it that way when I met with her.
Okay.
After that, so when she took the drains out and everything, I completely forget about that kind of stuff.
Right.
It's been so long ago.
Yeah. So when you talked to the medical oncologist, I mean, you really just kind of pushed a little bit
Right.
and said,
Yeah.
no, we're definitely doing
this.
chemotherapy. So,
but 22 years ago, that's what you did. There was no testing and typing and anything that they have now.
okay. So it was at that point you were just kind of like, no, I'm going to advocate for myself. We don't have,
Correct.
this information. My surgeon told me probably going to need to have this. I'm going to do it.
Right.
Okay. And so, you talked about that they don't use this chemo anymore. So what were some of the side effects that you experienced through that chemo?
My hair thinned out. Never lost all my hair, but it thinned out. And then I was one of the few women who I gained 50 pounds. Everybody else loses weight, not me.
Sometimes we're the anomalies.
My oncologist was excited. You're gaining weight. You're gaining weight. I said, no, you don't understand. I can't do this. But because I craved grease. I could eat French fries. I could go to McDonald's and get a huge French fries and just eat them all day.
Yeah.
And that's what I did. I mean, I had no nausea. It was just and of course, when the hair starts coming out and you put up a good fight and then you hit a point where I'm too upset for this.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and I would imagine, I personally did not do chemo. So I'm not really quite sure, but I would imagine that, either losing your hair or having your hair thin out would be stressful itself.
Right.
And so, just the way that people respond to that is very different. And so I don't know, do you think that maybe, in addition to craving the grease, there was maybe some emotional kind of, emotion going on in terms of like eating as well?
Possibly. And if I ever had to do it again, I would get my head shaved.
Yeah.
I wouldn't put up with it. It's coming out. Oh, it's gone. Just get rid of it.
Right. Yeah. And I think a lot of people, they kind of wait and see. And then it does get to that point where it's just, I'm not doing this every day,
right.
With the clumps of hair coming out. So, so you do the chemo. Did you have to do radiation at all?
I did 36 radiation treatments. Okay. I did 30, was it 30 or 31? And then the last 5 were what they called the blast. They just zinged the area for 5 more sessions.
Okay. So they kind of did a larger area
at the end.
First. Oh, yeah, at the end they did larger?
Uh-huh. Not larger, but more radiation.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So in terms of that, what did you experience from the radiation? What kind of side effects did you experience?
Not really anything. I would go to radiation and at 7:00 in the morning and go to work at 7:30.
Oh, wow.
I really didn't have anything major.
Okay.
And I was working at the school right next to the hospital, so it was easy.
Oh, well, that's convenient.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's really convenient.
Yeah.
A lot of people that I've talked to, including myself, not that I talk to myself, I mean, sometimes, but, just the fatigue is one of those things. And again, it's not really quite sure.
I did sleep a lot, but that was mostly during the chemo.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, just the whole process of it, really kind of drains you, emotionally, physically, just all of that. So, so you went through that course of treatment, and then was there anything else that took place at any other point in time? Was there?
Yeah, there was 5 years of Tamoxifen.
Okay, you did 5 years. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And then, so at that point in time, I would imagine you get through all of your treatments, you're doing the Tamoxifen, and then you're being monitored, right? How often were you going to be monitored during that, I guess, looking at the 5 years of Tamoxifen, how often were you going?
I would go to see my oncologist. It was every 3 months for the first year, and then we went every 6 months. No, it was 3 months for the first 2 years, and then the last 3 were every 6 months.
Okay. And then in that time, were you still seeing like your radiation oncologist for?
Not after the radiation was over. I would see him once a week during the treatments.
Okay. And then, so you get through the 5 years of Tamoxifen, and then do they still follow you what happens from there?
Well, I still would get a diagnostic mammogram.
Okay.
But since it's been over 20 years, son, the last 2 years, I've only got a screening once a year.
Okay.
And I've never had any issues. Yeah.
So a regular mammogram, not going in for the.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, the diagnostic is just, the radiologist is there to read it.
Okay.
It's the same test. It's just the results are given to you immediately.
Got
Here
it.
anyway.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Honestly, when they told me like, oh, we're going to send you for a diagnostic mammogram, I had no idea what that even meant. I didn't know that if there was a difference. So it was my one and only. It was one and done. So for me, all I know is diagnostic mammogram. I didn't even know if mammogram was different. So it's the same machine.
It's the exact same thing.
Okay. Got it. Okay. So do you currently see your oncologist still?
Nope.
No?
Haven't seen him. No. I think after the first 5-6 years, that was it. I just continue to see my PCP.
Okay. So the first 5-6 years into the diagnosis, or the 5-6 years after tamoxifen?
Into the diagnosis.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
It wasn't that long. I mean, because I know now when people tell me, "Oh, I have to wait," I said, "Well, no, I had mine done within 6 weeks of my diagnosis. My surgery was over."
Yeah. All right. I know that for some it takes a little bit longer of a time. That's why when you said, you had canceled that trip to Vegas and then you were immediately in for a mammogram, and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, it took me.
It took me about 3 or 4 days.
Yeah, it took me weeks.
But like I said, I had no idea. It was just, okay, let's do this because I have time now.
Right. Yeah. So, excuse me.
Sure.
At that time, the recommendation was for women. I mean, you said you were 44, so there was a recommendation to be having mammograms at that age, because I thought at some point in time it was 50.
Actually, no. I had my first mammogram at 39.
Oh.
My gynecologist at the time thought it was a good thing to do because at the time I was on birth control pills, so I was on some estrogen.
Okay. But that wasn't typical.
It was 40.
Okay.
Which it still is, or should be, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I thought I had seen at some point in time that they were really pushing for 50.
They were pushing in the American Cancer Society and all the docs and on Komen and all the powers that be all over the place that no, it's 40.
Yeah. I mean,
and that's where it stays. Yeah.
Yeah. And the sad reality is that there are many women under the age of 40 that are diagnosed as well. So
correct. I know a 32-year-old.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was 31 when I was diagnosed. So, every time I hear them saying, "Oh, the recommendation is 40," I'm like, "But wait, there are like 12,000 women each year under the age of 40 who are being diagnosed."
Well, and they say, "Oh, there are too many false positives." I'm thinking, hey, I'd rather have myself called back, have a biopsy to tell me it's not malignant.
Yes.
That's not a waste of my time.
No, absolutely. A waste of my time is waiting, for me, it would have been 9 years. Yeah.
Yeah.
But if I was following the standards, and I hadn't found my lump, it would be waiting 9 years to have my first mammogram.
Right.
So, and who knows what that would have been. So talk to me a little bit about the support system that you had around you during that time that you were going through your journey.
Well, I think the hardest thing I ever had to do was tell my parents. Yeah. Because, of course, I lived the right lifestyle. I exercised. I did this. I ate right. I did everything. And it's funny. My mother was okay. Well, my mother was a nurse, and my father, when they came to my house, my apartment, right after I called them, and my father had made me a meatloaf. That was his specialty. He didn't know what to say. He didn't know what to do. So he made me a meatloaf to comfort me. That was my comfort food.
I love it.
Yeah. And, my sister and my brother and all my relatives, we have a good Polish hunky background family. And then I worked in several schools, and the teachers were just wonderful. And in fact, the day I was getting ready to receive my call, the one teacher said to me, stay here. We want to be here with you when you get your call.
Aww.
I said, sorry, I got to go. But, and
it's
I
a very
had
kind
really,
gesture.
Mm-hmm, but I had really good support everywhere,
Good.
And I worked out with my job. I was able to work out where I had chemo on Friday afternoons that I had chemo. I was able to do every 2 weeks, take one sick day.
Okay.
So we worked it out that way.
Right.
And I really didn't need anything. Yeah.
How long were you, with the lumpectomy, how were you off work for a period of time?
2 weeks.
2 weeks. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And the school where you were working was supportive?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Good. Yeah. And that's the thing too, is just having that support system around you, whatever it might be. I mean, the meatloaf,
My meatloaf story.
Yeah, no, I love that. I love that
Yeah.
because, so many people get kind of hung up in terms of like, oh, what do I say? What do I do? And meatloaf is great. Like if you have nothing to say, like,
and
bring
I did have
meatloaf.
one young teacher say, "Oh, Miss Lynn, I really don't know what to say." I said to her, "That's
It's
okay.
okay.
Just don't say anything. You don't have
Yeah.
to say anything."
Yeah. I'm pretty sure that when I called my dad, I think my dad was like, wow, that sucks.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, Dad. Like he didn't
But you
really know what
what?
to say either.
Yeah. Because it used to be a death sentence, not anymore.
Right.
Even our metastatic breast cancers gals are surviving years.
Yes. I think that, and that's great. Like just really making sure that we're pushing so that everybody stands a chance at survival.
Right.
For sure.
Absolutely.
So what would you say, well, one of the support systems we didn't talk about real quick is that, so you've continued to have a support system around you.
Absolutely.
And so one of them is obviously Pink Steel and dragonboating.
Correct.
So,
I'm heading there tonight.
yeah. So
Yeah.
how long have you been involved in dragonboating and what has
14
that brought to your life?
14 years.
14 years.
14 years. I was the second wave of the first group that started back in 2003, 4, 5, somewhere around there. I lose track after 10 years. But we always called ourselves, we were each other's floating support system.
Yeah.
I mean, and at first somebody got, oh, that's stupid. But then when they realized it, yeah, it was a floating support system because you're there, ups and downs, a storm here, the sun here, the wind here. Yeah, I really relied on a lot of people. I mean, and they were very supportive. I mean, if not physically, but people were there.
Yeah.
And other women on my team had second, sometimes third recurrences during their time. In fact, we had one gal who waited to have her surgery till after dragon boat season was over.
I mean, I don't blame her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, it's probably, I never was in any competitive or group sports ever in my life. So,
and
this
for
is,
14 years you've been.
Years. I got promoted to the board. I'm important now.
Yeah. And so I'm sure you have lots of medals hanging around.
Oh, yeah. We sure do.
Well, that's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So what would you say in terms of going through your journey? What was the hardest lesson or the most important lesson that you learned through this?
Well, the hardest thing was for me to let people help me.
That's a good one.
My mother's fault. I'm very independent. I was taught to be a very independent woman. So was my sister. You did for yourself and you worked but yeah, I had to tell myself there are times that you have to let people help you, like have your friends stay with you overnight so that everything's okay. Take you out to lunch or take you to a doctor's appointment, and when you weren't able to drive. So, I mean, yeah, that was probably the hardest thing. And I've always said that. That was the hardest thing ever,
Yeah. I think
you
it's the
know?
Polish.
I think so.
I think that's where that comes from because I have a little
Yeah.
bit of that too, and I have a
Uh-huh.
little bit of Polish. So,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, I agree. No,
Yeah.
that is a really valuable tip
Right.
to just let people help you.
Right.
Um, so yeah, well, I'm gonna go ahead. We're gonna wrap it up here, but I want to thank you
Okay.
again so much for being willing to share your story. And I celebrate you one for being a 22-year survivor. That's fantastic, and I know that that's gonna, certainly inspire other people that might just be coming into the breast cancer world. And of course, 14 years of dragon boating. I mean, that's
Mhm.
that's amazing.
Well, I
So
want to thank you very much too. You're still my sister in dragon boating,
yeah.
and just keep those paddles up. And anybody who wants to look up a local dragon boat breast cancer survivor team in their area.
That's awesome. Thanks
Yep.
so much, Lynn. I appreciate it.
You're very welcome. Take care now.
All right.
Okay. Bye bye. Bye bye.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Behind the Pink Ribbon. Don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe. If you or anyone you know would be interested in sharing your story, please send an email to podcast@behindthepink.ribbon.com.
You've been listening to Behind the Pink Ribbon, produced by American Creative Consulting, mixed and mastered at Riverview Podcasting Studios. For more information, please visit designbyacc.com.